Hey y'all, I'm Dan Hamilton, Marine Corps veteran and host of the Next Gen Warrior Show. Here on the Next Gen Warrior Show, we are proud to promote the success stories of veterans, to discuss military transition, how to make that transition successful and healthy. Today we are in Buda, Texas. We are very happy to be back on the road. I'm joined by Air Force veteran Jenn Hassin. Jenn, it's great to be in the studio with you today. How are you?
Doing well.
Good.
It's good to have you guys here.
Thank you so much. So, we have a lot to get into. We're going to talk about art. We're going to talk about the studio here. We're going to talk about military transition. But before we get to that, tell us about your military service.
So I joined the Air Force right out of high school. I was a dental technician, and primarily I was stationed in England at RAF Lakenheath for my entire time. So
How was that?
I was pretty lucky. It was awesome. As like a young girl from middle of nowhere, Texas, It was amazing to get to go and travel all over Europe. My weekends off and would leave. So it was a really good time.
How long did you serve for?
I did 4 years.
Did you have any idea, like when I joined the Marine Corps, I think when I joined, we're recording here just a day before 9/11, and so obviously we're thinking about that very deeply today, but I think your service, probably our generation's service, was definitely inspired by 9/11. Mm-hmm. But when I served, I think I had the idea and the mindset at 18 that I wanted to maybe just do this forever. Was that your goal when you joined the service, or what kind of motivated you to join and then decide, hey, you know what, I'm going to go take a different path after these 4 years?
Right. So when 9/11 happened, I was in high school, and my older brother was a senior in high school, just started his senior year. And so he actually stood in the line on September 12th, skipped school, and went and joined.
Signed up?
He signed up, yeah. And so he joined the Navy. He's still in today. He's a lifer.
Wow.
A rescue swimmer, awesome man.
That's a tough gig.
Yeah,
being a rescue swimmer is something I could never do.
He's a fun guy. A lot of energy with that brother, for sure. So, and all of us pretty much copied him. So we all joined after they begged me not to join the Navy and to please join. And they didn't want their little sister on a ship. Yeah, I don't know if I should have said that, but. So
Choose
I
another
joined.
path.
Yeah, they encouraged the Air Force. This brother did, and so. I joined the Air Force thinking that it could potentially be something that I do for a long time, but I, more than anything, just wanted to go and, I grew up in a rough upbringing, so it was a way to get out of that and go and be part of something that was bigger and learn a thing or two about sacrifice and honor and respect and integrity, all those things. And so I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do after. Really, honestly, I didn't think too much past boot camp. I was I'm joining Open General. Give me a job while I was in, and ended up getting tasked with being a dental assistant.
So being a dental assistant was something that actually really changed your career trajectory after you took off the uniform. Tell us about military transition. So you go from hey, I'm gonna leave my home. I want to go find a new purpose in life, almost a second family, if you will, in the military. But then after that, you almost have to reinvent yourself again, right? When you take off the uniform, you go, okay, who is Dan now, or who is Jenn now? Talk to us about that process of finding your second career in art.
All right. So I was stationed in England, and I knew it wasn't going to, at that point, I knew that I wasn't meant to be in the military forever. Right. That I loved my time while I was in, but it was definitely time to get out. And so that was right when the new GI benefits, the 9/11 GI benefits came out. And so I decided I was coming back to Texas, enrolled at St. Edward's University. And at that time, I was pre-dental. I had no idea that I was going to be an artist. In fact, I had never taken an art class in my life. I was a cheerleader in high school, and I was always the one to make all these posters and stuff like that. And I've always been a creative, but never had taken a formal art class. And then while I was in school, my counselor encouraged that I take a ceramics class, especially with dental. Dentistry and ceramics go hand in hand with it's the same tools and all sorts of things. And so So I was pre-dental, and I take this ceramic class. Day one, decide I'm going to go and be an artist. And with the 9/11 benefits, you can.
You can do that.
You can just make this decision. So I switched my, trajectory of like the timeline when I was going to graduate, all these things to include art. And then my final piece in my undergrad at St. Edward's University in Austin is a memorial to service members that have died since 9/11. Yeah. And it was in the Pentagon, and it's been all over the U.S. And currently it's in New York, but it's been at places like West Point and on several military bases. And anywho, that piece, I got a scholarship after graduating that allotted for a studio space. It paid for that, so I had this monthly stipend that came in to support like my being an artist. Yeah. And that was after I graduated. So I never made it to dental school. It never was something that actually came to fruition.
Yeah, but I love the idea, I love the concept, and I kind of love the flow of the conversation we have about people where they set a goal for them and they don't always get to that goal, but it's a good goal and they find who they want to be or they find who they are en route to what they think that destination is.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you tell me what you were creating that day out of that mold, what that mold was and what that experience was like for you to have that kind of aha moment that, I really like creating, I really like being an artist. And now I'm going to change this trajectory. Was that a difficult decision for you, or was the aha moment so intense that you just went for it?
It was very intense. And for me, like, I will never forget the day. The first day in ceramics class, the professor hands clay to everybody. They tell us what to do, and we're making what's called a pinch pot, which is just making a pot or a cup with your hands, and you pinch the clay. And I'm pinching the clay, and I make these like beautiful little vessels that can like hold water, and they're all perfect and smooth and just these lovely things. And I look around the room and I was like, oh, whoa, like I'm actually good at, like, I didn't know I was good at something like not to knock my peers, but like not everybody was making these like really beautiful things. And I had never felt so strongly about the fact that I was good at something. Wow. Like I was really good at making that. And so it made me feel so passionate about this idea of like becoming a ceramicist or working with like sculpture or something at that moment that like I just dove in and decided I was going to be an artist that day.
Did you have anybody who pushed back or questioned this love that, hey, I'm going to do this, I know that this is going to be the best path for me? And how did you navigate that, either that confrontation or just those conversations with either family or loved ones or friends to say, oh, you're going to go be a dental hygienist? I know I've told people things that I want to do in my life, and then a year or two later, I take a different path. Mm-hmm. So I think that happens to a lot of veterans after they get out of the military because you start having experiences that you didn't have prior to then. And I think it's very natural. What I always, I'd like to tell our audience is it's natural to, like I said, project a goal and then find something along the way. But you also get resistance from people when you change that path, correct?
That's very, very true. So, and especially with arts, like,
very nebulous.
Yeah, and very often, even still today, even after, being in this for almost 10 years and having a master's degree in it, and obviously it's my
it's
passion.
Working out.
Yeah, it's working. But even now, people are like, oh yeah, you must be a starving artist. And I'm like, do I look like I'm starving? Like I'm not, like it's fine. Like I get it, because that's the idea, is that like if you're going to be in the arts, you're not going to make any money or, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Sure. Like I feel like if you really want to make it your life's work and your passion and what makes money, like you have to be just as much of a business person as an artist. And so so I've definitely had to fight back. But early on, like while I was in school and I made this decision to dive into arts, I would say 99% of the people were like, what are you doing? Like you could be a dentist one day. Like why would you go and be a starving artist? Like what are you thinking? And I don't know, my gut told me that that art was going to be really good for me, for my soul, for my family. I was a single mother at the time, so I knew that I needed to raise this child, and that I was going to have to make money. And so I just did all the research I possibly could, like what career could I have in the arts that would make it to where I could raise a child
Right.
and be a single mom and also be in the arts and make art, and teaching is a way. I mean, there's several jobs that you can have and, make money in the creative realm, so I think because of the kind of person that I am, I instantly did research that way I could shoot people down. I'm doing the right thing. This is the right thing.
So I'm gonna fast forward here just a little bit, because you talked about trying to connect the different almost paths in art to a career, and you just finished up at Columbia getting your master's, and you've talked about your interest in being a professor. Mm-hmm. Tell us about why you pursued that, why you went to New York, because you have done a little bit of both. You have created art, but then also being a teacher, being a professor is kind of a different path as well. So you can talk about why you decided to pursue that route within the art community. Yeah.
So with being an artist and the kind of career that I've had so far, it's amazing. But being in Texas, can only, not that you can't exhibit nationally. I was, but the art community in New York City, you got to get there. It's
it's the epicenter, right?
It's a no-brainer for an artist that really wants to take their career seriously. And because I had a family, fast forward, I'm married, I have another kid, so a mother of two at the time. What better excuse to move to New York City than for Columbia University, And I grew up rough, like I said before, I guarantee you nobody from my hometown that I grew up with ever would have guessed that I would be the one that would end up in New York City at an Ivy League institution. And I give credit to the U.S. military for that over and over and over again, because I don't know that I would have, without the GI Bill, without this confidence that the military gives an individual, all sorts of things, that ended up in New York. And so, that was really good for making career connections, but also grad school you teach. That's part of being a grad school, is that you have this opportunity to teach under, and at Columbia, it's a famous artist. You're teaching under a famous artist who's teaching sculpture or teaching ceramics or teaching, these students that are undergrads at Columbia. And so that was 2 years of teaching experience there. And I always knew that I would probably enjoy being a professor, but I wasn't 100% sure. I've been giving workshops in paper making and ceramics for years. But being able to have that dedicated time in grad school to play with my work and experiment with mediums, but also to teach was something that I'm really thankful that it pulled me there.
Well, I also really love the conversation with veterans where I try to tell them, pair your technical skills with your personal skills and your professional skills. And I think that's a really interesting point that you just made there about this is the industry I'm in. I know I can be an artist, but I can also build some technical skills as a teacher and build a network, and that you can kind of pair multiple things together in a career. If you get out of the military and you just go in construction, or you decide to go in investment banking, or you try to go into the art industry, or I work in government, you can use different skills, different talents within the industry you're in to, I think, supplement your career and grow personally as well. And I think that's a great illustration of that. Let me ask you though about maybe the artwork that got you noticed. And you mentioned briefly at the time at the end of St. Edward's, where you were putting together some of these military pieces, and you're kind of creating paper out of the uniforms. And it's a really, I think you mentioned it being cathartic, and you mentioned it being almost a way for even you to heal or for other veterans to heal.
Right.
So how did you come across this medium?
So with Letters of Sacrifice, and it being something that I started making at the end of my undergrad experience, it really opened my mind up to various types of mediums. And there's this medium that's going to seem a little out there, but to a lot of people that might be listening to this. But in the art world, there's this idea of social practice being a medium, working with an individual or individuals, bringing people together, having a room full of people being the art, and like that's something I'm really looking into now. And it really did start my last year at St. Edward's University, because I did a call for people. I knew what I was trying to make was too big for me to do alone, so I needed help, and I I was a veteran, and so I've reached out to the veteran community. Like, anybody want to come and roll paper with me? We're in college. We didn't do that in the military. So we came together, we rolled paper, but at the same time, I opened it up to everybody at the university. So it started off as this veteran thing, and then it opened up to like, hey, if any student wants to come, like, join us. Like, we're going to be in this room on campus, and come roll paper with us. And so many people showed up. Like, first day, it was like, I think 56 people showed up.
Wow.
Majority not veterans. And what I found really beautiful about it was that, like, by having all of these civilian students that are young and wanting to learn in the same room casually, with these veterans, like, they could ask questions.
Sure.
Because I think, like, one of the big problems with, like, our generation of veterans is that we're so few and far between. Not everybody can relate, and like, by just making people sit next to each other and have a conversation, like, you realize, like, that veteran's not just a veteran. They're a human, dynamic
person.
Yeah, they have a lot going on, like, more in common than they probably realize. And so it's by doing that project, and like I said, it ended up traveling all over, but it really opened my mind up to this idea of, like, bringing people together and working together to make something. And so that's a huge part of what I do with my work that isn't so much like the piece behind me. This is more controlled by me, and I do it with a small group of, like, my assistants, and to make something. But, like, whenever I'm working with an institution or a museum, a lot of times it's with, like, a lot of people coming together to make something about an issue.
And I do want to talk about this behind us. This is really incredible, and before we started recording, we had a great conversation about it. So it's really incredible. Even if I look at it at the corner of my eye, I'm like, man, this is so cool, and I can't wait to get there. But let me ask you this: was it intentional when you got everybody in that room to kind of try to bridge that civilian-veteran divide, or was it just something that happened organically?
It was organic. Like, it was like a gift. Like, I really see it as this gift in my my becoming an artist, that, like, I could realize, like, my mother growing up used to always say that I could lead 100 people off of a bridge. Right. I was that kind of crazy. Like, I could bring people together. Like, a natural born leader, like, could come and get a lot of people together to do something. And it was just a natural thing for me to be like, oh, I need help, like, I should do this call for, and I'm going to provide lunch for everybody. And, like, I went to the veterans coordinator at St. Ed's, and she was like, oh yeah, we'll pay for lunch for everybody. Like, I just asked. Like, you don't get what you don't ask for. And so I just started asking, and then on top of that, just seeing how beautiful that was. Like, I oftentimes will say that the making of some of those pieces is the art. Like, you're just seeing this remnant of it. Like, all you're seeing is, like,
your tip of the iceberg.
You're just seeing that. Like, like, there's other pieces, like a piece called The Battle Lost, that's all paper made out of military uniforms, and it's a piece about veteran suicide. And that one, same thing, civilians and veterans. But amazing men and women sat together, learned about each other, talked about something super serious, but also, conversations about boot camp were happening, conversations about, being stationed wherever, or in, like, the normal, like, we didn't do it, but, like, the, teasing each other about what branches, like, everything. You didn't call it the chair force. Like, usually that
Marine Corps and Army, there's some rivalry going on there.
Like, all that was happening, and it was really beautiful. And, like, that, to me, and the amount of people that touched that piece isn't evident, but that was the work, and so that's something I really wanted to focus on while I was at Columbia, this, like, idea that something could be more.
This is very different for somebody like me who's a novice in the art world, who only sees, just a very small percentage of maybe some popular art. Who are some people that you look up to in the art world, or who are some people that inspire you, and what brought you to this medium?
Oh, yeah. So artists like there's definitely some
Okay.
artists
I might
that I
not
look
know
up
them,
to.
but that's
I know,
all right.
yeah. But
Yeah,
I'll name the
Okay.
ones that I really look. Okay, one that I'm sure you've seen their work,
Okay.
the Vietnam's Veterans Memorial,
Okay.
in DC. Her name is Maya Lin. Like she's been somebody that I've been looking at for over 10 years now. Love her work. Just very much like her work is about, looking past what you're seeing visually. It's like really diving into like research and like what every little thing is, and everything is done with intention. And so I'm inspired by that, but also artists like Ella Natsui. And I went to grad school with having faculty members that I've been looking up to for
That's
quite
so
a while
cool.
too,
That's so
and getting to learn from them is also something that I'm super thankful for. But a faculty member, his name is Rikrit Tirvanyet, and I really look at his work as far as like how to connect people and engagement, social engagement, community engagement into the making of my work, and thinking about it in this like very intelligent way versus like having it be so willy-nilly, like really having like a purpose and for why I'm doing things. And so that's a handful of artists that I look up to.
So we got to talk about the Google Doodle.
Okay.
So if you've ever used Google, which I'm pretty sure everybody listening to this or watching this has, you have gone on to the browser and you've seen the animation that they have across the search bar. And Jenn, here, you have an awesome story about how your work was featured as a Google Doodle. So what was the first time that they reached out to you and contacted you about this idea? Tell us about that.
Oh, so it's a funny story actually, but I get this email and it's from somebody from Google that's like interested in my work and interested in having me be the Google Doodle artist. I did not know what a Google Doodle was. I am familiar with the search bar, all those things, but I wasn't familiar with the term. And so I to be completely honest, like didn't really know what it.
You were like,
and I was like, and I'm also as an artist, and oftentimes for Veterans Day, I'm asked to do something, and this was like specifically a request for Veterans Day. And honestly, I thought that I was being asked to go and doodle on the walls at Google for
in downtown
Veterans Day.
Austin, huh?
Yeah, I did not know. And then once it was explained to me by my ex-husband, actually, he was like, "You're an idiot. Like, this is a huge opportunity." Once it was explained, I was like, "Oh God, like, wow, this is really cool." So I had the conversations with the Google team, ended up working out to where they commissioned me to make a work of art. And they don't do sculptures very often. Like, most of the time, it's an animated image that is 2D that they scan in and can make into the Google Doodle. But they specifically were interested in my rolled paper works and how layered, because they're rolled paper, but it's paper made out of military uniforms, and then the stories that go along with that. And so if you look up the Google Doodle and my name, Jenn Hassin, then there's a video that explains like the making of the work, and a cool time-lapse video that they put together, and it explains it. But I got uniforms from all 5 branches of the military. Didn't get a Space Force one.
Oh, that's all right. We'll leave them out of this one. Yeah.
Crickets. Like I don't know any Space
Once
Force
there's
veterans
like
yet.
Star Wars going on, shooting in space, then
right?
we'll include them.
So I made this Google Doodle out of all the different uniforms, and
Can you talk to us about the importance of those uniforms and why those are included in the artwork that you do?
Yeah, so transforming work or transforming items is something that I'm very much interested in. So for example, the white that's in the Google Doodle was given to me by a Vietnam veteran, and they insisted. It's really hard for me sometimes to take an older uniform and shred it, because I know that person doesn't have multiples. Like, how many uniforms did you have? And
no, it's very finite.
you know, a modern day one, I have no problem doing it. But like when somebody gives me an older uniform, I know it's their only one and they insist, I do it, but it is a little bit more difficult. But by taking that and transforming it into something else, it gives that material a new life. And just like with any experience, and that's how I kind of like relate the two. It's like if something happens to you, especially in the realm of trauma or something difficult, and you look at something like this uniform or this item of clothing or whatnot, and you relate it to that thing that was really tough. Like by transforming it, like you're watching it change, just like that instance changed you. And so that's why I do that. That's why I transform materials. But at the same time, there's also times where like somebody hasn't had something traumatic, but it's something that's very serious to them. Like, you know, there's a Marine Corps uniform in there that, you know, I know that individual just like very much loves being a Marine and, you know, and it's changed his life. So in the same sense, that transformation is evident. But yeah, I mean, so collecting all the uniforms and transforming them to be this Google Doodle for Veterans Day to honor veterans is like it was a pretty awesome, crazy experience, honestly.
So outside of seeing your artwork shown to the entire world as a Google Doodle, which is incredible, congratulations. That is, and it's great, I think, for the veterans community too, to be able to you know, show those who are in the armed forces, hey, you can do whatever you want after the military. If you want to be an artist, or if you want to go work in government, or if you want to be, you know, a machinist in the manufacturing industry, go do what you want to do. Find something you have a passion about and go pursue it. So I appreciate you being just an incredible example for that. But I'm interested to know where else you have shown your art and some of the most exciting maybe experiences that you've had showing your art as an artist.
Oh, yeah. Wow, I've shown my work all over the state of Texas, and it's always, I mean, it's hard to say which one. I'm trying to think of what would be the most exciting. But my first time to exhibit in New York City was like super exciting for me. Wow. You know, like just driving, I still drive my own works because it's really, since this isn't like a painting, it's hard to like say, oh yeah, you just hang it. Like, so usually people are like, oh, and we'll pay for you to come and install the work too, because it's
so you have to do everything from beginning to end.
So I show up for install usually, and so for this show in New York, like I was literally in a U-Haul driving up to New York City, and this was like before I went to Columbia, and with the art, you know, and the U-Haul, and just like totally giddy about it, you know. So that was really exciting. But I think putting my work up at the Pentagon it still is like this very serious, because like when I made that piece in undergrad, Letters of Sacrifice, like we had to pitch our idea for what we were doing for, you know, senior thesis to our peers, and I explained what I was doing, and then at the end somebody was like, where are you going to take that after? Like this thing's like, you know, 14 feet in diameter, it's like tall, you know, where is it going to live? Like you can't just hang it on your apartment wall when we're done, you know.
It's not an 8x10.
Right, and so I had just watched this documentary that was recommended to me about art, and Maya Lin explained to her niece in it that if you want to make it to the museum realm, don't make work for your home. Like don't make work, like you have to make some work that's like out there that doesn't belong, that you're going to have to like hustle to make sure you keep it moving and keep it out of your garage or out of a storage unit. And so I mentioned that, and I was like, so, you know, like I want this at the Pentagon. I want it to be in front of the people that actually make these decisions about war. Because you can bring up the president all you want. You can bring up, you know, different politicians, which like I definitely think like voting for the politician you agree with for foreign policy and all those things are very important. But like at the end of the day, these decisions are made at the Pentagon. Yeah. And I wanted that work specifically because it's a memorial to service members who've been killed since 9/11, to be in a place where people making those decisions had to walk through it or by it. And so, this is a little tangent from what we're talking about, but very much related. But people always ask me, how did I get my work into the Pentagon? Like, yeah. I mean, and it was
how
not,
does that process
I was
work?
told no like 16 times before I was told yes. Like, I kept on making calls. Like, I kept on trying to contact somebody that would have a connection to the Pentagon. Like, I really want to show this at the Pentagon. Like, this needs to, and, you know, every opportunity I had to, like, reach out to somebody that might know somebody, just nothing, like, ever happened. So
How long of a time period was this that you went through these calls?
It was years, like
wow.
three years, I think. Maybe, probably 3 years.
So you were creating the piece of art that you
It was
knew
already done, and
already
I was showing it all over the state of Texas and Louisiana, Oklahoma. Like, I was going around, you know, crossing state borders, but I hadn't made it to the Pentagon. And so the mission continues, which is a great organization. You should look into it if you don't know what that is. It's awesome. But I did the Mission Continues fellowship, and part of that you do like you go for a weekend and then you do this like service thing together, like all the project, the big service project you all do together. And naturally, since I'm an artist, they put me in charge of painting walls white. Like, oh yeah, like, can you be in charge of painting? Like, they gave me that, and I was like, yeah, because I'm into construction, whatever. Well, I'm really good at painting trim, so I was like, okay, I'll do this. And I put people, like, I definitely ran some stuff and like started painting trim and like tried to connect with people that I could teach how to paint trim. Well, there's this older man, like, I promise this has everything to do with Letters of Sacrifice. There's this older man just like pacing, going around, like not working. And so, but wearing the same shirt as us and everything. And I was like, hey, yo, you, like, get over here, get that stool, come on over here. I'm going to teach you how to paint trim. Yeah. Turns out he's like one of the generals that planned the Iraq invasion. Like, I had no idea who this guy was. No idea. And so I just was like sitting there talking to him. Like, I asked him what branch. He said Army. I was like, ha ha ha, you're so dumb. You know, that whole thing. And, you know, like, you're my dumb older brother, aren't you? You know, like, whatever. And so, you know, just going back and forth, he asked me what I did. I told him Air Force Dental. I asked him what he did, and he was like, I planned stuff, you know? And I was like, planned? Like, that's literally what he told me, that he was like, you know, I like planned, whatever. And I was like, what does that mean? And then he was like, oh, you know. Then it comes down to, like, that he's this general, and that he was our, like, guest, like, our like...
Yeah, like a feature speaker almost. Or,
yeah, I didn't do my research, I didn't. But anyway, so he ends up just like painting trim with me, and like we hung out like that evening. We had like a dinner that we all went to. He went and found me, asked me to sit with him and his wife at their table. We were talking. It was great. You know, his wife was like, oh my God, I can't believe he painted with you today.
Yeah. How did you get him to do that?
How did you get him to do it? And he ended up telling me that he was like thankful that somebody told him what to do, because like as a general, you're always telling people what to do. And so it's almost like Legos. Like, it's so relieving to like have like something that you can just follow and do, and somebody's telling you what to do. Small tasks, done, and it's done. It's not so damn serious, you know. So it was like really nice. And he ends up saying, if there's anything that you need, you know, just let me know. And I was like, well, I have this art piece, and like dying for it to end up in DC someday. So if you have any connect, and at that point I hadn't given up on the Pentagon, but I was just like, okay, if it gets to DC, maybe somebody will see it, and it'll end up at the Pentagon. And he was like, oh yeah, well, like, I work at the Pentagon. You know, like literally 6 weeks later, it's outside of the Secretary of Defense's office.
Wow.
Like, every day he had to walk through it for years. I mean, so it was Ash Carter, and then Mad Dog Maddox had to like walk through.
And see that every day.
Yeah, so.
That is a really incredible story. I mean,
that
the
is
perseverance and relationship
and I did not
building.
know, I literally didn't know that was where that was going to lead. But also, it's like, to me, I grew up waiting tables, like all throughout junior high and high school. I waited tables, and the best advice that was ever given to me by a veteran that also encouraged me to join the military was always treat everybody exactly the same. Like, don't ever treat somebody that, like, if they're a general, like, yeah, respect that, but, like, you know.
Still treat them like a human.
They're human. Yeah. And just, like, look at them in the eye, talk to them, and, like, be respectful to everybody. Like, it doesn't matter who they are. And so I truly believe that I ended up making that connection with him because I treated him like everyone else. So
from art at the Pentagon and being at the Mission Continues and thinking about all of that, it leads us to the work behind us. That is going to be a future piece that'll be displayed in Dallas. Tell us a little bit about this and why this was created and a little bit of the backstory.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, you got to be part business woman and part art or business person and part artist to, really get out there in the business. And so I made connections with art dealers and art consultants here in the Texas area. And this piece is for a new building in Dallas called the Link at Uptown, and it's going to be flanking some elevator doors. There's this piece and one very similar to it that's going to be flanking the elevator doors, and it's being installed next month. So I'm working nonstop on it, but it's all newspapers made out of Dallas business journals and the business section in the Dallas Morning News and some magazines and stuff. Yeah. So there's a lot of color and whatnot, but like a lot of it is very business related rolls. So I didn't make this paper, but rolled all these pieces and then we glue them together to make this. And like the composition of this piece is based off of the map that the neighborhood. Cool. Yeah. So this is. So
there's some topography here.
Yeah. So this is Uptown, and like right behind you, this is like where the building is, and then the neighborhood. So that makes like where the paper meets is where those streets are.
Really incredible.
Yeah, so that's like this, by doing work like this, it makes it to where, like I said earlier, like I'm in this other, like that's like my business side of my brain is this and creative, but like I also, by making money with this work, get to like really play with the kind of work that ends up in institutions. Next month I have a show opening up at the National Military Art Museum in Chicago, and then museum in Syracuse as well, and those are shows that are like they're sister shows. They're speaking to each other in two different places, but like all the work for those shows are like very experimental work that is made possible by doing work like this.
Let me ask you, for somebody who may be watching or listening to this and they're interested either in the art community just as a personal passion project, or if they actually do want to get in as an industry person or to be an artist, what's the best way to either get connected with you or maybe some organizations either across Texas or the United States that might be able to help them at least be a part of the community?
Right. So my biggest advice, I mean, if you want to get a hold of me, definitely, I'm easy to find on social media, and my email address is all over everything. Like, email me. Like, it's not
too hard to get a hold of you.
Not too hard. Like, I answer back. If it's not right away, it's because I'm like holding a baby or.
I can confirm. I actually reached out to you, I think, on Instagram. So she will. What's your Instagram handle?
It's at Jenn Hassin, just my name.
There you go.
So it's very easy, and my email address is the same. It's just my name. So. But anyway, if you want to get into the arts, though, like business, get into the business of art, I think the best thing to do is like really be serious with yourself on like what level you want it, and then start looking at artists that are doing that. Like if you want your artwork to be hung, in buildings that are across, the state or whatever, like government buildings, go and look and see like who the artists are. But oftentimes, if you do just a little bit of digging, you can see who are the consultants that place that art. It's usually one team per building that does the art for the whole building.
Sources it,
And so you can look up like art consultants in your city that you live in, and those consultants, they go to the art openings. They're there. They're at, they're looking.
Reachable, they're accessible.
They are, so you got to do a little stalking.
Yeah.
A little research, a little stalking. But, and having a studio definitely helps. Right now, we're in a studio that is not a high traffic area, because I'm at a point where I would rather just not have people walking by.
It gives you a little peace and quiet to work.
Yeah. But I also have a studio that is in a building that's really busy, that's in Austin. It's called Canopy, and it's in East Austin, very popular location. But that's not where I'm making the work. That's where I put work on walls for curators and dealers and collectors to go and look at, versus this is the room where I'm making it, and the purpose of that for me is just so that way I can have this white cube to go and really dive in.
To the grindstone.
Right, for hanging work, and like how an institution might take one of my works and hang it. Like I can realize it a little bit better in a space that's, well, not here, but at the other space. Here, this is where we get messy, and this is where I listen to, all sorts of,
angry,
this is where I burn myself with a glue gun, and listen to music far too loud, and
that's good.
Have fun. So
it's an artistic space. That's what it's for.
The other space is a little bit more serious, but the other space has a lot of traffic, and so for things that are for somebody who might be thinking about getting into the arts, or if you're just interested in the arts, like this is also another thing. If you're interested in becoming a collector, or just knowing more, or meeting more artists, like the Austin studio tour is coming up in November, and that is something where like you can walk around and go into hundreds of art studios, and at Canopy you can go into 70 art studios, and you can park your car at one time and go into 70 art studios and see how 70 artists are all doing it different, and kind of get this idea of like what kind of direction do you want to take.
So we've had we kind of plotted ourselves from your time here in Texas to being stationed in England and showing art at the Pentagon and your work at Columbia. What would you leave our audience with as kind of, a last word or a piece of advice based on your military service as well as what your military transition was?
Oh yeah, so I definitely want to encourage you, if you're listening and you're wondering like what should I do next, and especially if you're at the beginning of that process of transforming into a civilian again. And going and getting, this new life going for yourself. And it is. And it's difficult, even for me as like this young, happy-go-lucky person that had a pretty chill job in the military as a dental assistant. It was still difficult for me even to like go and find myself on this college campus and try to make connections and understand. Like, even, it wasn't that... Like, I know it can be a lot more difficult.
Seamless, so.
Yeah, it is not seamless at all. What I really encourage people to do is look at what your military benefits are and take advantage of them. Because if you don't, like, they just go unused. Yep. And it's so sad. Like, to me, there's so many people that are like, oh, I didn't know about voc rehab, or I didn't know about, all these other things that are there to help you to get to another place and be a successful civilian and a contributing member of your society. Yeah. And so really that's what I think, I really want to encourage people to make sure they look into what their benefits are, use them, and connect with the veteran community, and put yourself around people that you want to be around and not be, don't feel like you're not worthy of it, because you sure as hell are. So
absolutely. Well, Jenn, thank you so much for inviting us here into the studio and talking about your story. I'm excited to see this hung in Dallas. Congratulations on everything that you have achieved, and we're super excited to continue to watch you grow.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. On behalf of Chairman George P. Bush and our dedicated staff at the Texas Veterans Land Board, this is the Next Gen Warrior Show, signing off from the road here in Buda, Texas. We'll see you next week. Follow us on Instagram at Voices of Vets, on Twitter at Voice of Veterans, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Voices of Veterans. To hear more, please visit voicesofveterans.org. Join us in sharing the success stories of Texas veterans. Thank you for joining us for the Next Gen Warrior Podcast.